Yet the people around me made me believe the opposite. It all started when my father decided to marry a foreigner, aka my mom. In my father's community, it was prohibited to marry someone who is not one of them, yet he had the courage to do it. Leaving his parents with no other choice, my father brought my mother home and they lived at my grandparents' villa on the second floor. My mother quickly regretted her decision because we live in a country where people are too strict. There were too many rules. Men and women didn't mix, women had to follow certain protocols, and worst of all, everyone got into each other's business. When I was born, my grandparents were disappointed. They desperately wanted a boy, yet I came instead. And to make things worse, everyone was shocked by my beauty. To them, my beauty was unique because I am the only one who held foreigner genes. When I grew older, the situation got worse. People started to notice my beauty and it drove men insane. I was always the talk of the town, and my father and grandfather used to argue all the time about it. I didn't mind it much until one day I was about to head out, but the front door was locked. Weird, I thought. It was never locked. But things got weirder when I called our maid asking for the key, and she simply ignored me and walked away. I was furious. I started screaming at her, but then the rest of the household staff stood by her side and threatened to lock me in my room if I kept asking for the key. I was shocked. Were the maids really threatening me? I went ballistic and smashed a $10,000 vase to the ground. And that's when two of the staff men grabbed me by the arms and legs and locked me in my room. I was locked in my room for more than 6 hours. I was confused, without any clue of what was going on. Until I heard the door unlock. I stood there shaking as the door opened slowly, and to my surprise, it was none other than my butt-faced granddad. He came in smirking, showing his disgusting yellow teeth. Turns out he had planned the whole lockup thing. He revealed that he had felt humiliated and called me his scandalous granddaughter who had brought shame to the family. Why, you wonder? Apparently my looks had brought the wrong type of attention to the family's name. I couldn't believe that such a thing would happen to me, and for such a stupid reason. While I was trying to understand this whole mess, my grandfather said the most shocking thing ever. From now on, you will not go out without permission. Then he opened my closet and emptied it out. I stood there shocked as I saw my Gucci skinny jeans, dresses, and swimsuits being viciously torn. I cried, begged him to stop, but instead he grabbed me by the arm and said, "Shut up or you'll find yourself locked in the dungeon." He then grabbed my perfume and makeup, smashed it all on the floor, and headed out. Before he left the room, my granddad turned his head and said, "You have brought shame into this family and you will pay for this. No more going out, no more dressing up. You managed to get every man in town to talk about you, yet I don't see any men asking to marry you. You're just like your corrupt mother." I was speechless. What the heck is happening? I was being locked up because I'm pretty? How is that even my fault? Since then, I lived like a prisoner for 4 years. I never went to any birthday parties, hung out with friends, or had a boyfriend. I've never experienced dating or even dared to imagine having a first romantic kiss. Until one day, that old butt-face got sick and was hospitalized. I was able to breathe a bit. I had part of my freedom back and was able to leave the house. But I didn't have any friends to hang out with. Plus, everyone believed that I was a bad influence, and because of that, I was not welcomed at anyone's house. However, I tried to make some new friends, but it was the worst idea ever. You would think that my problem was with men, but the truth is, it's the girls who made it even worse. Their obsession with my looks drove them insane. They accused me of distracting all the interesting guys, followed by disgusting gossip and rumors that I had no idea where they'd come from. There was this one time when I went to the mall alone to do some shopping, when suddenly I felt something strange. You know that feeling when you feel that someone is watching you? Well, I felt it everywhere I walked and turned. I was in the fitting room when I heard giggles. I went out to see who was chuckling at me. I was sure that I heard something. And to my surprise, there were 2 guys peeking through the fitting room curtains. I quickly took my things and left. They started shouting, "Hey, Cupcake, where are you going?" I ran out of there as fast as possible and called my father crying. When my father arrived, he was not alone. He came with 2 macho men wearing black suits. He told me that from now on, I'll be working with bodyguards only. Though my father is tough sometimes, I knew that he loved both me and my mother, and he only wanted to protect us. Therefore, I stayed with the bodyguards and continued my shopping. And to be honest, I felt way better having them by my side. At least they held the shopping bags. The next day, while I was headed to a nearby coffee shop with my mom, I saw something unbelievable. I was about to faint when I saw walking copies of me everywhere. My jaw dropped and I couldn't believe my eyes. Most of the girls were wearing the same outfit I'd bought the last day, and they even had the same haircut, nail color, everything I had. I felt as if there were hundreds of me everywhere, and it freaked me out. At first, I tried to convince myself that this was just a coincidence, but it happened a couple of times. Turns out that some of the girls stalk me and buy everything I do. And what really blew my mind is that a couple of them actually managed to get engaged after that, which got all of the girls hyped up even more. The obsession lasted for months. But what made things worse is that these girls wanted to destroy my life. They hate you, but they want to be you. Get that logic. It was bearable until the day I almost died because of it. I was leaving the mall's bathroom. I felt something pull me by the hair. I freaked out and started screaming, but then I was pushed inside the cubicle and was faced with two girls holding scissors. "Too bad this golden hair belongs to trash like yourself," the girl said as she started cutting off my hair. "Not my hair!" I started fighting back, but it's not a fair fight when it's 2 against 1. I screamed my lungs out when I saw my hair fall. The girls left and I sat on the floor crying. The bodyguards entered half an hour later to check on me, and they didn't even recognize me until I explained what had happened. After that, I kept having nightmares about the incident and started having panic attacks at night when I would start sleepwalking out of stress. There was this one time when I woke up in the kitchen holding an ice cream in one hand and a muffin in the other. My mouth was covered with chocolate, and Ned, one of my bodyguards, was standing there trying to hide his smile. I was super embarrassed. I blushed and ran to the bathroom to clean myself up. The next day, I asked him about what had happened when he told me I had recently started sleepwalking and that I should pay the doctor a visit. This was not my first time, and God knows how many times I've embarrassed myself in front of him. After that day, Ned and I began to talk more. I actually found out that he was 2 years older than me, and he's actually kind and cute. I felt comfortable with him. He's the friend I never had. I began to understand the importance of having a friend in your life. After spending more time with Ned, my sleepwalking began to vanish and I started to feel less stressed. Ned and I became good friends. He even shared with me his sad love story. He told me that he once had a crush on a girl. She was the love of his life. And when he confessed to her, he was surprised to know that she had the same feelings for him. Yet her parents didn't approve of their relationship and prohibited her from seeing him. Years passed and she got engaged. And Ned still hasn't been over her yet. He was in real pain and I felt sorry for him. I suddenly felt the urge to hug him, but let me just tell you, that was a huge mistake. My father saw us and he went mad. He came towards us, bursting with fury. He started yelling at both of us and even fired Ned. I tried to explain to my father that this was my fault and it didn't mean anything. I mean, it's only a hug, but he refused to listen to me. And that's when Ned said the most shocking thing ever. "Sir, I want to marry your daughter. I love her and I want to marry her. Please give us your blessings." "What?" I asked shockingly. My father was shocked as well, but he also seemed calmer and happier. I immediately looked at Ned and he gave me a look that said, "Don't worry, I got this." When my father was finally calm and left us alone, Ned explained himself. He offered to help me by saying, "I have a plan. Marry me and we will leave this country together. And once we are out, you are free to live on your own." I laughed at his face, saying that was the stupidest plan I'd ever heard. "Are you for real?" I asked. And that's when he grabbed my hands and said, "Yes, I am 100% serious." I felt confused by his seriousness and asked, "Why? Why do you want to give up on your life, make such a huge decision and leave everything behind just to help me?" That's when he said, "Because it's a win-win deal. The love of my life is going to get married soon, and I thought maybe when she knows that I am with someone else, she'll change her mind. As for you, you can finally have your own freedom. You will live the life you always wanted out of this miserable country." I was surprised by his offer, but actually it sounded like the silliest yet greatest plan ever. I started imagining how my life would be without limitations and restrictions, and I immediately fell in love with it. "You're insane," I mumbled while laughing. I knew that Ned was a sweet guy and someone that I could trust, especially after the egg incident a year ago. He was brave enough and took an egg for me. Yes, an egg. Some weird girl tried to attack me by throwing an egg on me, but he reacted fast and protected me. He held me in his hands, covering my face and my body while the egg hit the back of his head. I looked into his eyes while the eggnog was dripping from the back of his head, and I felt something different about him. So I thought about his offer and couldn't find any reason to not accept it. Months passed, and while Ned and I were busy preparing for our wedding, we went on a couple's date and acted as if we were deeply in love. During that time, I managed to plan my life abroad, and he planned for his. I applied for a job and rented a small apartment. My heart was pounding fast and I couldn't wait to finally be free. Days before our wedding, the most shocking thing happened. Many guys came to our house with tons of cash, cars, jewelry, and other stuff that you can't even imagine. They wanted to tempt me with money and cancel the wedding. Yes, they literally tried to buy me with their fancy stuff. But I definitely refused. Yet, what drove me insane is that Ned had to suffer too. He was attacked on his social media accounts, in the streets, and he even got fired. One of those obsessed guys owned the company that Ned worked for as a bodyguard, and he fired him for marrying me. Gosh, how low can people sink? What Ned and I went through didn't really matter in the end. We managed to overcome it. But what really mattered is when the love of his life appeared at my house crying and begging him not to marry me. She was courageous enough to come to my house and beg my future husband not to marry her. Her jealousy drove her insane when she knew that I was the bride, and we were actually going to get married in a couple of days. When I saw her hugging Ned, my heart dropped. I felt pain in my chest. I wondered why I had such a feeling. I mean, I should be happy for him. Our plan is working. When I suddenly realized that freedom is not what I wanted. It was love. Ned is what I wanted. But what should I do? It's too late now. After what happened, Ned tried to explain the misunderstanding to my parents. However, he couldn't hide his triumphant feeling and his happiness. The smile he had on his face shattered my heart into a million pieces, yet I pretended to be happy for him. At that moment, I realized how ironic it is to have all the guys all over you, but not the one you truly want. The night before our wedding day, I was having another stress attack. I began to sleepwalk again, and this time was not like the others. I grabbed the car keys and was about to start driving. The other bodyguard came running towards me and managed to wake me up. He called Ned and told him what had happened. Ned rushed to my house with his PJs on. He was terrified. I was sweating and shivering. Ned hugged me tight, and I felt his heart pounding faster than ever. He said that he wouldn't forgive himself if something bad happened to me. I burst into tears and yelled, "I love you, I want you for myself, and I don't want anything else." He looked into my eyes and he kissed me. It was my first kiss ever, and it was oddly romantic. Ned confessed that he loved me back, yet he wasn't sure about how I actually felt towards him. I asked him about the one he loves and the whole plan when he explained that he already ended the whole thing with her for good. He doesn't have feelings towards her anymore. However, he hid the truth from me so that we could continue with our plan. He didn't want to ruin things for me. He was the sweetest person ever. The next day, Ned and I got married. It was a real wedding, and we said, "I do," from the bottom of our hearts. We thought after marriage our life would be easier, but no. People in my country couldn't just accept us. We didn't fit in, so we finally decided to leave the country. Now Ned and I live in a country where I am free to be me. Other girls are pretty in their own way, and there are some that are even prettier than me. I stopped being pretty Elena. Now I'm just Elena. Oh, and I am pregnant with a girl.